Recently, I made a video talking about these two silly bug types in Pokemon Run and Bun, and how this guy in particular, Golisopod, is in my opinion the best Pokemon in the entire game. However, what if there was another Pokemon that you could get as early as before the first gym badge that challenged that title? A Pokemon that is incredibly useful for the entire game from the moment you can obtain it. Meet this absolute cutie, Togedemaru. To those of you with Run and Bun experience, I'm sure this comes as no surprise, but to those of you who don't know, Togedemaru is pretty widely considered to be the single best Pokemon in Run and Bun's early game. In fact, it's generally considered optimal to delay Granite Cave until getting access to Route 110, just to get a chance at a Pokemon with Static, which boosts your odds of encountering an Electric-type Pokemon to 50% if that Pokemon is in the front of your party. There are a few things that make this little bowling ball of a mouse so unique and powerful. Number 1, its ability, Iron Barbs. Iron Barbs is essentially a clone of Rough Skin, and deals an eighth of your opponent's HP upon making contact. Second, Togedemaru gets the move Fake Out, which is one of the single best moves in all of Pokemon, especially in double battles, which can be a real pain in Run and Bun. Steel-type Pokemon are obviously very useful as well, and Togey is one of a few of the earliest Steel-type Pokemon available to the player. If you do end up pulling your Granite Cave encounter before the Aqua Grunt back-to-back fight in Slateport's Museum, and it is Togedemaru, it absolutely dismantles this fight. Like, it isn't even funny how easy this one is with Togedemaru. When it comes to boss fights in Run and Bun, I really struggle to think of a single boss fight that Togedemaru wouldn't excel in, which really lends to how insanely useful of a Pokemon it is. Let's start with Brawly, the first gym leader. At first glance, Togedemaru seems like a perfect counter to this here Poliwhirl, which is true. However, it can do so much more on this fight. Generally, Brawly's most threatening Pokemon is his Hitmonchan, and by pivoting between Togedemaru and a Fighting Resist, while weaving in Fake Outs, it's usually no problem at all. Not to mention that it doubles as a normal resist for Lopunny. It's easily one of, if not the single best Pokemon for this fight, which is pretty crazy considering it's actually weak to fighting type moves. Moving on to Roxanne, Togedemaru really excels here too. Once again, Togedemaru can be a perfect counter to 3 of Roxanne's most dangerous Pokemon, Aurorus, Lunatone, and Solrock. In case that you aren't aware, there are 30 heart scales placed throughout the map in Run and Bun that are almost like a currency in a way. You can use them to relearn valuable moves, maximize your IV for a specific stat, or with 3 of them you can even change your nature. Togedemaru can use a heart scale to learn U-turn, which is super valuable at times, specifically for Roxanne's Solrock. As long as Togedemaru outspeeds, which most of the time it does, you can pivot on Rock Slide or Psycho Cut and U-turn into a ground resist on Stomping Tantrum. Alternatively, usually with a single Iron Barb ship, Metal Claw can OHKO Aurorus, and if you take Eerie Impulse, it's a great counter to Lunatone. Shell is a recurring character in Run and Bun, and between the 2nd and 3rd gym badges, you get to battle her. Once again, to no surprise, Togedemaru excels here, being able to provide so much to condense the rest of your team. It's a great check to Vespiquen, which admittedly isn't very threatening, but on top of that, it's a great pivot for Shell's demonic Togekiss, since Grass Knot is surprisingly a contact move, meaning it activates Iron Barbs. Now for Watson, where Togedemaru once again synergizes almost perfectly. It's fantastic here to break the Magnezone lead's sturdy with Fake Out, while also pivoting on the Zeraora Grass Knots for chip damage. I've also used the little guy as a backup for the Rotom fan, since there aren't a ton of Pokemon out there that can safely 1v1 this thing. But the fight where Togedemaru really showcases its full potential is definitely Norman. This fight sucks, and this Cinccino is one of the biggest reasons why. When a Pokemon is holding a King's Rock, it gives it a 10% chance to flinch with any of its moves. Combine that with Skill Link, and all of Cinccino's attacks have a 50% chance to flinch. Togedemaru is the absolute hardest counter to this thing, however, since all 5 hits of Tail Slap trigger Iron Barbs and does massive damage. With single-stage Pokemon with decent base stats for early game like Togedemaru, it's usually expected that they'll start to fall off eventually. This guy isn't quite like other single-stage Pokemon, however. He's a little bit different. The most common strategy in Run and Bun for double battles is generally to focus one side if possible while baiting moves into Pokemon with Protect or immunities, and Togedemaru gets access to both of these. At level 54, Togedemaru learns Spiky Shield, which is a better version of Protect that combines Togey's Iron Barbs ability, once again dealing 1/8 HP to any Pokemon that makes contact. Combine this with Fake Out, and that gives you nearly 2 free turns in the majority of all double battles. While Togey definitely falls off in the raw power department at this point in the game, it makes up for it completely with its raw utility. Fake Out, Iron Barbs, Spiky Shield, U-turn, Electro Web, Eerie Impulse, and potentially even Nuzzle all have their uses. And the worst part about this little mouse is not having enough move slots for all of them. Enter Flannery, the 5th gym leader in this game, who's a double battle in Permanent Sun. This fight is surprisingly pretty easy, and Togedemaru once again helps out a ton. The general strategy here is to lead with a rock type that isn't dead to Solar Beam from any of Flannery's mons, like his Hisui Arcanine, Lycanroc Midnight, Tyrantrum, etc., and a Pokemon that baits KOs on the other side. Usually stuff like Carracosta to take fire moves and bait solar beams is perfect, and Togedemaru is the perfect recipient of those solar beams. Once again, another fight that the Steel Mouse excels on. As a proud runner of Turtwig myself, I honestly can't speak as much on the Piplup and Chimchar rival fights on Route 119. But Togedemaru is also the perfect lead for this horrifying double battle in permanent rain with permanent electric terrain. I believe the canon here is that it's supposed to represent a thunderstorm, which is honestly pretty creative from Dexa. My usual strategy here is to lead Togedemaru if I have it, which I oftentimes do since routing for it can be pretty important. Pre-damage to die to Salamon's Hydro Pump. I've developed a really consistent strategy for this fight that I covered in my Winona Split guide video. And I won't spoil it here, so instead I'll encourage you guys to check that one out. It's really good, I promise. Togey continues to do a lot of the same stuff that it's done for the prior sections of the game, and it really starts to pick up again in Tate and Liza's gym, where everything is a double battle. Another really valuable strategy in double battles is being able to pre-damage your Pokemon to very specific HP and bait moves accordingly. But gyms automatically heal you in this game, so this isn't actually possible here, which makes it much more challenging. I very recently beat Run and Bun. I know, claps in chat, I'm kind of the GOAT, and I brought Togey to 4 out of 6 gym trainers in the Moss Deep Gym, which is pretty widely considered to be one of the hardest sections in the entire game. This little round mouse that I got at the very beginning of the game is still holding up this deep into the run. It's honestly incredible. After Seafloor Cavern, there's a section of the game known as the Erratic Weather Routes, where the weather is constantly changing in between fights. I think the canon here is that Kyogre and Groudon are beefing or whatever, but there are a bunch of fights in permanent rain, permanent sun, and permanent rain with electric terrain, just like the rival fight on Route 119. One of the final fights on these routes is this battle against Relly and Ian, which is another one of the toughest fights in the whole game. Once again, in my winning run, Togedemaru was perfect here and was a part of the team. We're gonna high horsepower, and then fake out. This fake out does 2 things. 1, it stalls a turn. 2, it puts Victory Bell exactly in range to die to high horsepower from Excadrill now. And this is going to bait Ursaluna for a fast kill on Togedemaru because we have an Iron Ball. I'm never getting targeted in the Excadrill slot because I'm faster than Ursaluna, and I'm not dead to Victory Bell. So we high horsepower Victory Bell, and we Spiky Shield. It's going to be Weather Ball and high horsepower into Togey. Perfect. Victory Bell dies because of the fake out and rapid spin chip. And now Ursaluna takes a little bit of chip damage that doesn't really matter from Spiky Shield. Perfect. A combination of her Fake Out and Spiky Shield, along with Crawdon and Smart Pivoting, allowed Excadrill to sweep the entire fight. What Togedemaru really does best at this stage in the game is enable the rest of your team, especially in these really challenging double battles. The 8th and final gym leader, Juan, is another double battle where you aren't able to intentionally damage any of your Pokemon. He leads with a Mega Glalie and a Sneasler, and if you're able to take care of the Glalie with your court-ordered Urshifu holding your court-ordered Choice Scarf, Togedemaru can completely run away with this entire fight. We're still faster than Sneasler, so Sneasler sees a fast kill on Togekiss, not on Urshifu, so we're gonna Wicked Blow you. So this is always Poison Jab into Togey. Baiting fighting moves into something that baits poison moves like a Togekiss makes this so easy, and you can simply keep the Sneasler alive while pivoting around with Togey. With the exception of maybe Tate and Liza, you can really make a strong argument to bring Togedemaru to every single gym fight in the entire game. Like I've already said, this little guy consistently performs throughout the entire game, and it's even come to the Elite Four in Capanivia's winning run, which just further proves how Togedemaru is the best Pokemon in all of Run and Bun. If you enjoy this style of video, be sure to like, drop a comment, and subscribe. I honestly really love making these video essay type videos on Run and Bun, and your support helps me make more of them. Also, like I said, I recently beat Run and Bun on my Twitch channel, and I'm going to be working really hard on crafting up an awesome video on the winning attempt. Thanks everybody for watching. YouTube outros suck. I don't know what to do. Bye!